Hi, I'm Kat, and this is my 2019 bullet journal setup. So I'm using the Scribbles That Matter B5 journal this year. On the opening page, there's a nice little spot to put your name. So I'm just filling in my name and some sloppy cursive that I'm kind of fake calligraphying by coloring the downstrokes in just a little bit to make them a little bit more emboldened. And I'm using the 1st of January to start off the new book. For the key, it's nice that it's built in so you don't have to make a page, and it's easy to find in the beginning of the journal. I'm using just some simple blocks that are task started with a dash through it, and then an X for task completed. I'll use an arrow for task moved as I rearrange tasks in my day-to-day and even monthly to-do lists. The index I probably won't use too much, and we'll get into the first page, which is going to be just an opening 2019 page. So you can see here I'm using some simple bubble letters to fill in 2019, and these are just big chunky letters. I did use pencil before I used pen just to make sure that I spaced everything out all right. I think that each letter is about 7 to 8 blocks across, so it's about 17 blocks on each page, and I'm just going to color this in black, just something simple that I can keep going back to throughout the year. Now, around this I'm building in some lines, just some simple lines to break it up into 12 even-ish sections that I'll fill in with the theme of each month. This next segment of pages is going to be the year at a glance. It's just going to be simple each month at the top, and then on the bottom it's going to be a list of dates and things that I need to do. I did go over with this with pencil. The months are 7 blocks across and 5 blocks down, and so I did this for each month, and around it as the month continues I'll just doodle the same little designs that I'll do on each month to fill it in and make it look a little cuter. Here's a little cliche transition while I fill in some simple headers on each month, just to differentiate the month. I just used a simple regular handwriting font that will look simple, especially when I doodle around the mini calendars to fill in with the rest. And I just completed this until I got all of the months down. Here's a look at the rest of them, and the last 4 for each block, they're 17 wide and 15 blocks down, and then the sections on the bottom have about 31 blocks so that there is room for each day to put an event. The next page is going to be books I read. I really like these spreads because it encourages me to read more. I'm going to do 3 shelves with that are 10 blocks down and the whole width of the page across, and I'm going to fill these in as I go along, so having a blank page will make it a little bit more motivating to read a little bit more, because I already do read, but I would like to try to read a little bit more during this new year. So the letters are just some funky bubble letters that I'm going to fill in with some colors, and here I am drawing the shelves. The shelves are just 1 block thick so that there's room to put the books. I did design this so that the books will be 10 blocks tall, and there will be like a block of space so between the book and the next shelf, just so it looks a little bit more visually appealing. Over this I'm using 3 brown markers to make it look a little bit like a wooden bookshelf, and it gives it a little bit more depth. I was really happy with the way this looked when I finally finished it, and you'll get to see it now. Another thing I really like about this spread is that it kind of satisfies that need to keep the books around, to remember them and to say, oh yeah, that book was really great, I really loved it. So now you've got a picture of the spine of it that you can go back and think about that book. So I usually kind of approximate the cover of the book when I go back in and draw them. I'm just filling in the letters in this little book doodle with some zebra mildliner markers. I don't know if it's really zebra or zebra, but on the book I'm calling it Great Expectations, just to be a little funny about the great expectation of reading some more books during the year. And then I'm just going through and randomly coloring in some of these letters just to make it look a little bit fun, and it should look a little scattered and not in a pattern, kind of like the different colors of books on a shelf. And again, I'm using the zebra mild liners, which are really great because they don't bleed through and they have some pretty fun colors. Some of them are bright and some are a little more pastel to kind of fit the aesthetic that you're looking for. The next page is the best page because it's the movies I watched page. To start out, I just did a simple film reel that you can see me coloring in now. And again, I did go over it with pencil first, just to make sure that I didn't mess it up. And I just kind of followed in those lines, and the tape is coming out of the reel. And on top of it, I'm going to write movies I watched. While I'm filling this in, I'll talk about how I will fill it in. As I watch movies throughout the year, I'll probably do little popcorn pieces all around the page until it looks like exploded popcorn everywhere. And in the little popcorn kernels, I'll write the title of the movie, and I might do the date that I watched it as well. I did choose the black and white because black and white movies are so classic, and it made the page look a little simple and cool compared to the kind of crazy colors that are on the previous page of books I read. Still filling all the little dots in. It's a little monotonous, but I'm really happy with the way this looked. It really does look like the film rolling out of a film reel, and I can't wait to fill this in with little pieces of popcorn and maybe even tickets, buckets, and other little mementos at the movies. This next page will be a habit tracker page. The circles, as you can see, I already filled it in with a pencil beforehand since I can't get a pen into my compass to help me draw perfect circles. So I'm just kind of roughly tracing these. It doesn't matter if it looks too perfect because when you put a bunch of lines in it, it ends up looking a little cooler and a little more funky if it is a little off-center, off-kilter. The circle on the biggest part is about 26 to 30 dots across, and I'm going to fill it in here with some bigger segments to put in my titles like Take Your Vitamins, Work Out, Read, and then I'm going to fill it in with 31 smaller lines for each day of the month. And so for each of these, I'll pick a color for each segment, like green for workout, pink for Take Your Vitamins, and use that color throughout the month until the next month when I get to start over and pick a different layout. Kind of using the ruler here on the center dot to make sure that they're all even-ish, but again, it doesn't matter if they're completely perfect segments, as it'll look a little cooler and a little more hand-done and whimsical if it is a little off-kilter. However, doing it this way, you have to pick the different spots and make sure that everything does have a space so you don't end up with 20 or 35 different segments instead of 31, which is the days of the month. And here I am double checking that I have enough, and I don't, so I'm adding just a couple more here. And double checking again. At the bottom of the page, I'm doing a separate tracker for beauty routine, so it's stuff like the AM and PM beauty routine, which can be simple, like washing your face and adding lotion. And I also did mask and different serums to make sure that I am taking care of my skin throughout the year. And when I see very dryness or different things going on, I can go back and track to see if I've done something to cause it. So up at the top again, I'm filling in my labels. I'm using a Tombow brush pen to try to calligraphy. I'm still kind of learning, so it might not look the best, but it's a bullet journal. It's where you can make mistakes and learn new things while you're laying out your plan for the month. So the first one is take your vitamins, and then I'll fill in reading and workout, floss, anything you want to help you keep track of your habits, create new habits during the month. And here I don't like to take up a whole space just to write the days of the month, so I usually put it on the one on the outside, which this month is take vitamins. And that way when I color it in as I go along, it's also ticking off the day so I can keep track of what day I did what habit. And here I'm also using the Tombow brush pen to do some fancier letters, but you can really do anything that works with your handwriting and how you want this layout to look. And to finish off the page, I'm just doing some simple wording here with the brush pen, trying to make it a little fancy with the Tombow brush pen, but I'm just putting habit tracker to put a title on it. In the future, I'll probably use the decorations that I will use for the monthly page to make it look a little more festive and to differentiate the months. On the next page, I'm using a mood tracker just to keep up with your mood on different days. I'm using unexploded fireworks now, so it's kind of like little rockets flying around before they blow up. And so I'm doing 31 of them, and I didn't go ahead and number these, but as the month goes on, I'll use red if I'm angry, blue if I'm sad, and see what mood dominates the month, and then look at my habit tracker to see maybe I didn't take my vitamins and I'm a little more moody, or I didn't work out so I feel sluggish. And that way I can keep track of the things that make me happy. On this next page, I'm doing another health tracker. This one is actually going to be a weight tracker since I do tend to keep an eye on the scale. And I am getting married this year, so it's something that I do want to try to keep track of to make sure that I'm where I want to be on the big day. So I'm just doing a simple grid here that I'll have the lines on. On the left, I'll put the different weights, and right now I'm filling out boxes that'll be the dates. I know that there's more than 4 weeks in every month, but most of them do have 4, and I'll just pick 4 dates to keep track of the scale, and on the other page I'll do measurements. You can see that I just messed up a little bit, but at the end of the spread you can barely tell. If I would have had a white gel pen, I may have gone over it to fix it, but I think that it altogether looked pretty cool, and I used different colors to do each month just to kind of keep them different and to go along with different themes. And as you can tell, you can barely see where I screwed up, and I also forgot December, so I had to add that in as well. I like how it turned out very colorful with the different colors for each month, and it made the page look a little bit more fun, because it's not something that you should flip to in dread. It should look a little more festive. And then on the right side I had a little more room because the 12 months didn't take the whole page, so I just decided to come up with a fun thing. So I'm putting shredding for the wedding just to keep me a little bit motivated. I thought it was super cute. On this next page I'm doing another health tracker, which is measurements, and I'll be using the measurements for my bust, hips, and waist to kind of keep an eye on those during the year to see how they're changing month to month. And I think this will ultimately help me when I'm picking out a wedding dress and going back and forth to the seamstress for fitting, to keep track of how my measurements are changing, so I can kind of give her a heads up if anything has changed before the next appointment. Right here I'm filling in just 2 days a month because it's something that you see bigger change when you let a little more distance go in between the measurements. So I'm putting 2 dates a month, one towards the beginning and one towards the middle, and I'm just picking 2 of the dates that I used on the page to the left. You can see that I've done bust, waist, and hips, and finishing up that now. Now I'm going back over the months and going over some already penciled in lines for each month, and just doing some block letters that I can fill in if I want, or leave white depending on what I want to do for the background. The background will change with each month as I change the themes of each month. That'll be on the monthly spread pages. On January I'm just doing a gray background since I'm doing fireworks. Didn't have enough room to kind of do fireworks in the little January box, so I thought gray was a good complement. And during the year I might fill in the January with a brighter color depending on how my layout goes, since I am doing color on some of the fireworks on my weekly pages. And then now I'm adding a little bit of a drop shadow just to give it a little more depth. I do think that it did add a little bit of definition and made the page look just that much better. As you can see here, it was a little hard to read, so I added some dots to separate out each month, and I thought it made it look a little bit easier to see which month was which, and where I can fill out my measurements of each month. This next spread is a little boring. It's just a contacts page. I will highlight each line of my contact information, or passwords or account numbers for work. I did use this in my bullet journal for 2018 and found it incredibly useful and something that I did flip to day to day. So just to color it in, I'll use some yellow because that is our company color. It's kind of a gold color, so this was the closest I got. And as the year continues, I'll just highlight again and write in my contact information or password, whatever I need to be able to flip back to when I'm on a different computer that maybe didn't save it, or something that when I'm calling on the phone asking for something, I can have that at my fingertips. So finally we get to the monthly spread. I'm really glad that I went over this with pencil first, because I originally had 5 days a week instead of 7, and that of course doesn't work. There are 7 days in a week. So if anyone does need to know, I used 7 by 8 blocks for each day, which I just filled in with a simple number. So the whole month was 56 wide by 45 tall. And I did use some little dots to guide my lines when I went over it with the pen. I decided not to use a ruler because it doesn't matter if it's straight lines, it's straight enough without having to get out the ruler and really make sure, which I think it made it look a little bit better and a little bit more hand done to do it this way without the super straight lines, but I might use those in the future on different spreads. For the lettering for January, I wanted to make it look a little bit like an explosion, kind of like the fireworks going off. Here I messed up a little bit. I'm doing dots around the letters to make them kind of look like they're exploding. I did the line here, and I ended up being able to fix it, but on the other letters, I did just use the dots to kind of make it look like it's exploding out of the letter. As you can tell, this does take a long time to do lettering this way, but I really do like the way it turned out. It looks like it's blending into the background and kind of exploding to the word January. Coming out of the lettering, I am doing my design. So here I'm doing the same little rockets that I did for my mood tracker to look like they're blowing up into the letters. And around the letters, I'm just scribbling it in some fireworks. They're super easy to make. It's just a bunch of lines. I did go over it with pencil first to kind of get the layout that I wanted. And I really like the one I'm working on now. It looks like sparklers or Roman candles going off. I didn't like the way that this one turned out, but it ended up blending fairly well with the rest of the fireworks going off. It's kind of like one of the grand finale ones that you set on the ground and light at the end, and it has just streamers of fireworks coming out. And here's another rocket and some more sparkler-esque fireworks blowing up around it, and a few more to tie in over the month layout. It's just an easy firework with varying lines going off. In this one, I put in a little bit more lines around it, little dots, to act like the ones that kind of sizzle after they blow up. Around this, I took the same brush that I did the letters with, and I just put some dots to kind of blend it all in to kind of get that look of the letters as they blow up. Now I'm going into my weekly layout using lines that are 15 blocks high from each other and 17 wide, which is the full page of the B5 journal. I used kind of a full-size section for Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, and then smaller sections for Saturday and Sunday where I usually have less going on during the week. And here I'm just using the big rocket that blows up into fireworks and some random lines as a firework blowing up. This third one kind of looks like a wand going off, but it was supposed to be a sparkler. I'm not completely unhappy with the way that that turned out since I am a Potterhead. I did use that finale firework again, and this time I added some more lines, which did help it a little bit, but I did go back through and color these in, which you'll see in a minute, and it did make it look a little bit better and more pleasing to the eye on the page. Just finishing up with some simple little fireworks. went in and colored these because during the week sometimes you just need something bright to look at and make you excited for the next day in your to-do list. And again, I'm using the Zebra mild liners. The fluorescent and the pastels together made it stand out really well against the white background and made it look like fireworks, since the fluorescent ones were super bright, just like the fireworks are super bright against the sky during New Year's. All these colors make it super exciting to fill in the pages during the week and add all my to-dos and little notes during the week. I am filling in the days with the last 2 days of last year, since I didn't use this week on my last year's bullet journal, so I am using the 30th and the 31st for this year, and then I will start the new year on Wednesday with the 1st. Going back to the front page, I'm filling it back in with the fireworks theme that we used on the monthly layout. I'm just using the little rocket and then my favorite little sparkler theme here. I'll probably fill it in with color at the end of each month. So our final flip through here to see what we did to lay out our journal in our first month. The at a glance yearly layout where you can add your dates. Our January, that's a little out of order. The books I read, movies I watched, mood tracker, habit tracker, health trackers, contacts page, and our weekly layout.